welcome to Jenks City Hall. Tonight is our last regularly scheduled meeting of the Jenks City Council for 2023. My name is Corey Box. I will be your chair for tonight's Council and Public Works meeting. The time is 6 p.m. The date is Tuesday, December 19th of 2023. And before we get underway, Mr. Macy will verify our attendance.
Murray. Here. Brown. Here. Klein. Short. Emmons.
Here.
OJ.
Here.
Mayor Box.
Here. All right, for tonight's invocation, we welcome back Pastor Tommy Davis. Good evening, sir. How's the little man doing tonight? All right. If you could, we have keep one of these guys over here in the vacant seat in prayer as he's recovering. And right now, the girls, junior varsity and boys varsity wrestlers are hopefully not getting their collective butts handed to them over in Sand Springs. So pray for our local athletes as well, if you wouldn't mind, sir.
Absolutely. Let us pray. God, we lift up our city council member that is out ill tonight. God, we understand that you are still a healer and that you still possess power to heal any manner of illness. So we pray, God, that you would touch our city councilman who is out ill tonight. God, we pray that you would bring healing, strength, and comfort on tonight. We lift up, oh God, our Jenks sports. We pray, God, that they are doing exceptionally well as they participate in the sports, oh God, that they are involved in this week. We pray, God, that they succeed, that they're kept safe, and that they are doing exceptionally well. Be with them, God. We pray for safety, comfort, and strength. Oh, God, we pray for their means to be able to perform their sport to the best of their ability. Bless our meeting tonight. May it be all that you would have it to be. Bless our city continually. Thank you, God, for the growth in Jenks. Thank you for those that continue to come into Jenks and find it to be a great place to live, work, and do so much more. We pray, God, that you continue to bless our area. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, Mayor.
Can I ask our fire department to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight? Thank you, gentlemen.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, looks like we have Fred Reed on his way for tonight's animal welfare spotlight. Good evening, Mr. Reed.
Hello, Mr. Mayor,
That
Council.
looks like the Taco Bell.
Yeah,
dog.
we're downsizing this week, and in more ways than one, hopefully. We're introducing Joe. Joe is a little Chihuahua mix. His elderly owner is pretty incapacitated and no longer able to care for him, so they surrendered him to us, asked us to find him a new home, and he's a good little guy. A typical Chihuahua, though, he is a little nervous at first, but once he gets to know you and identifies you as his person, he is a very sweet little guy. He loves laps. That's his favorite thing. So he would probably like since he lived with an elderly person, he would probably like a nice quiet home to live the rest of his life with. So if anybody is interested in meeting Joe or any of his adoptable friends, they could, as always, they can call us at the police department at 918-299-6311 or email animalcontrol@jenksok.org.
How old is he?
We're told he's 4. I don't know if that's accurate or not. He's got a little bit of gray, but he's a good little guy.
Great.
He's already neutered, got all his vaccinations. He's heartworm negative, and ready to go.
Robert Bell's looking for one.
Okay. So say goodnight, Joe.
Good night, Joe.
He is a
And to the members of our public who attend, or maybe you don't know, all of our meetings are now available on YouTube. So the City of Jenks has a YouTube page. So if you'll go to YouTube and search City of Jenks, I would encourage you to hit that. It's the subscribe button, and then you can hit the notification alarm, and it'll tell you or alert you when we have a new video that's been posted. So if you want to go back and see which dogs are available for adoption, then that's a good way to keep up with what's going on in the City of Jenks. So please like and subscribe and hit that notification button on our YouTube page. We'd appreciate it.
Are we advertising to monetize?
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, now we're going to open up our meeting to what we call citizens or public comments. For those of you that don't know, if you are here tonight and you would like to address the council as a whole on any topic that is not actually on tonight's agenda, we would welcome you to do so. And if you do, we would like to ask that you keep your comments between somewhere to 3 to 5 minutes. Yes, sir. Good evening, gentlemen. If I could just have one of your names and...
My name is Alex Watkins. I'm a resident of Jenks. I live at 432 East 126th Street South. So, on or about October 26th, you joined us for a live burn evolution at the Wausau Training Facility. And we appreciated that so much that you came and took the time to learn about our job and how we do it. And so we wanted to present you with this shield and helmet. It's the actual one that you wore that day. And can we give it to you here? Or would you like to-
You know why I took so many pictures of you that day? When you see this guy pulling a rope with a t-shirt on, he looks like Hercules. So we kind of try to spotlight some of the best we have. So, and this guy's pretty much of these two. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate it. Absolutely. That's awesome. Yeah. With you in the middle. Yeah, absolutely. Does it still smell like that day?
It might.
Well, there goes my hair, but whatever.
That'll be all right.
Yeah. Really cool. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Threw me off with that public comment. Thanks again, gentlemen. Moving on to tonight's general business. Item number 1 is, yes, we have more public comments. Yes, sir, please come. If we could just have your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Dave Feening, Fienning, and I'm at 4401 East 131st Street, South. And they call it Bixby down there. Why? Counselor, Mayor, I'm here to address the situation at 131st in regards to South Tulsa Causeway. About a year and a half ago, we were put on hold on this project, and we don't really know where it's going. And after a year and a half, we were wondering if there's any new light on the, what's happened at NCOG or anything in regards to you guys. Do you have any information that you can share with us at this point?
Well, typically in public comment, we don't have a back and forth. It's just because the item wasn't put on the council agenda, but I'll make you a deal. I will call you and let you know what the latest updates are. It has been a while since we've gotten any information, but I'll call you and give you an update. Is that acceptable?
Right.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Just go ahead and give me your phone number. I'll be happy to give you a call. Yeah, absolutely.
The number there,
Happens, doesn't it?
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. You bet. Okay, any other public comments, citizens' comments? Yes, sir, good evening. How are you?
Good evening. I have a letter that I could pass out.
Yeah, if we could have your name and address for the record, please. and
Yes,
then-
my name is Neil Ewing. I live in Melody Lane at 833 West G Street.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ewing.
I wanted to address the whole council to make them aware of the situation I've been dealing with for the past 7 months. I've been a resident of the city of Jenks for approximately 15 years. I'm just trying to get a street light in my neighborhood fixed. I first contacted PSO back in May. Each time I called them, they told me it'd be fixed in a week. A week or more would pass by, I'd call them back. They'd tell me the case was closed because it was fixed. It was not fixed. I did that for about 6 weeks before I got the city involved in July. The city told me that when they spoke with PSO, it'd be fixed in 2 months. 2 months passed. Another 2 months passed. Another month passed. I came up here to City Hall 2 weeks ago and spoke with Brandon, who took my phone number and had my email address. He said he'd contact PSO to see if they could get it fixed. And that he would contact me and let me know what he heard. Another week passed by. I didn't hear anything, so I contacted him again. They're not even responding to the city. I believe if the city offers services, which they do in my neighborhood, provide streetlights. If the city's aware that there's an issue, if it's broken or something, it needs to be fixed in a timely manner. It's a safety hazard. This started out in May. I like to walk my neighborhood at night after dark because it's cooler. Trees, roots grow up under the sidewalk. It's not even. I've tripped several times on the sidewalk because it's raised several inches. And so I know that the city doesn't take care of everything itself. It contracts out. But if who they're contracted with to take care of the problem can't take care of the problem, I think another solution needs to be found. So I just thought that by making the whole city council aware of the situation, that maybe we could get some resolution on this. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Before you go, and we won't have a back and forth discussion, as you can hopefully appreciate, but
Sure.
do we have your contact information, I'm sure?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I still have.
We'll see if we can get this escalated either through the city manager or myself.
All right.
I'm sure. Yeah, we'll work on it.
I appreciate it.
We too appreciate what it's like and understand what it's like to deal with a giant utility company.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Put that over here. Any other public comments before we close the floor? Okay, if there's no takers, we will close the floor to public comment. We move on to item number 1, which is consideration and appropriate action for tonight's consent agenda. If any members of council would like to remove or discuss any items A through G, you may do so at this time. If not, we can entertain a motion to approve item 1 as presented.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you both. We have a proper motion and a second to approve item 1. Let's vote, please.
Murray? Yes. Brown? Yes. Emmons.
Yes.
OJ.
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes, as a result, we pull item number 2. Move on to item 3, which is ordinance 1634, relating to Jenks zoning 23 PUD or planned unit development 146, a request by Bell Land Use for a planned unit development and a zone change for the underlying zoning from agriculture to RS3, which is residential single family and commercial shopping. The general location of this application is 131st Street in Elm. If you have a agenda and you'd like to follow along, we are on page 89, and we welcome Mrs. Hilton this evening. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Box and Council. This item is JZPUD 146. The general location is north of 131st Street and west of Elm. The applicant is Mr. Robert Bell, and this general area of South Jenks has been in our fence line. In December 5th of this year, just 2 weeks ago, the council voted to annex this 120 acres into the actual city of Jenks. So it's no longer in the county, and it is now a part of Jenks. The area also was adjacent to Elm Street and played a big part in getting that project released for the Elm Street expansion, because we desperately needed right-of-way. And because this was tribal land, we have worked for several years with the people pursuing ownership, who now do have ownership, and that right-of-way has been gifted to the city at no charge to the city. Correct? Suddenly I was like, well, maybe, yeah, that's true. The project details, this is not Jenks Public Schools, in case you were wondering. So there are 3 phases in this PUD, and I said at Planning Commission, Mr. Bell comes often with very creative projects. Sorry, there was a card up here that was very distracting to me. And this particular one has 3 phases, and all you're going to see tonight is phase 1. So any activity on phase 2 or phase 3 will come back to you in the future for a major amendment, or they could do a new PUD. But they've laid out already the general requirements for all the lots. So in phase 1, there is 43.52 acres, and that would be what was referred to as Jenks starter homes, which is about $300,000 starting price, not maybe not surrounding community starter home prices. They would have 53-foot lots. Phase 2 is 55.2 acres with luxury living with minimal maintenance. So this is a product that is very popular in Broken Arrow, this particular builder, and this is for people who maybe want less responsibility with their yards, and maybe they don't need a pool or want a pool, but they still want the luxury of having a larger house with a little bit less to take care of. And then phase 3 would be, is being rezoned, so the request is RS3 for phases 1 and 2, and commercial shopping for phase 3. And in the future, they'll come back with some commercial shopping. It looks like they've dedicated 8 acres on the hard corner for commercial, and they'll probably come back asking for 12 acres to be developed as high-intensity single-family. The property is currently zoned ag, and if you look at the bottom of page 90, this is pretty well where I'm talking from, there are a couple of active wells on this site, and the city of Jenks does have ordinances in our code that we go by when there is land development. But as a rule, we do not regulate oil and gas issues, just like we don't regulate if there's wildlife. That's all done through other agencies at the state and mostly at the federal level. So there's a couple of areas like blue line streams and different things like that, completely different. It has nothing to do with the city of Jenks. So what we're asking tonight is approval of rezoning from ag to RS3 and to commercial shopping for this 120 acres with a PUD that you would approve for phase 1. And then in the future, if this is approved, if you agree that this is the right place for residential and this is the right place for commercial, which the comprehensive plan says it is, if you agree with that and you agree with the comprehensive plan, then in the future, there would be the administrative part, which would be plating. And plating would come back. We put plats on consent agenda because they're administrative. I have a list, it's about 2 pages long. You go through the whole list, you check to see if they've done everything. And then the developer, we did a lunch and learn this summer where developers came and spoke and talked about, when you go through the plating process, they have their own list outside of what the city requires, where they have to go through and meet all the EPA, et cetera. So just a little extension of our lunch and learn conversation. So at the bottom of page 90 is the chart. I went ahead and added the RS3 standards and then compared them with phase 1. And they have a minimum house size of 1,400 square feet and 100% masonry, excluding doors and windows, of course, on the ground floor. On page 92 is a picture of the comprehensive plan. And then if you want to skip, it talks about, on the following pages, it talks about what I'm looking at whenever I'm approving a planned unit development. On page 97, it says staff and planning commission recommend conditional approval of the request for rezoning from ag to RS3 and commercial shopping with a PUD 146 overlay, and including details for phase 1. And then there's a list of requirements that are part of the conditions. So they'll have to continue to work with staff to get those conditions met. One of them is a collector that runs north and south from 121st to 131st and collects with 121st Elm Complex. The other one is, I just try to remind everyone, currently in the UDO, and this was previously not the case, we allow for accessory dwelling units. So unless you specifically exclude them in a PUD and someone comes to me and wants an accessory dwelling and they have the proper amount of impervious surface coverage, then I will be granting them that. So that was just an FYI. Then, of course, following the subdivision regulations. And also just being very aware of section 6 of the UDO. So on page 98, starts the actual PUD document. You have a photo of the land there. You have Peoria, which is also Elm, on the yellow line that's on the right side of the page. And then you have 131st down at the bottom. You have the development concept. On page 102 is the same thing that I put in the staff report, the chart that shows the comparison between an RS3 lot and the request that they are making. On page, we'll go a little bit further. On page 108 is the general layout for this project, and you can see phase 1, 55-foot lots. They are really working to protect that blue line stream. You can see the detention there. It'll be a great amenity for the people living in that area. They'll have it fenced in such a way that there's access to it. On page 109 is Exhibit F, which shows the comprehensive land use plan. Exhibit G on page 110 shows the zoning north of that area, which is the 121st Street complex, and then the zoning and all the different subdivisions to the east, and then the ag lands to the west. One of the, I think we had a couple of people speak at Planning Commission, and I received a letter from the Providence Hills HOA president. There are concerns about different streets in South Jenks. And also the people who are still in the county and have ag property also have livestock and roosters. And living by a neighbor with roosters, I get it. You kind of want to let everybody know in advance that you have roosters and they're not going anywhere. So roosters can be annoying. They wake you up early. In the city, we don't allow roosters. We only allow poultry, but they're in the county, so that's the difference. This neighborhood would be adjacent to it, and that was one of the concerns that was stated. Page 112 is the actual notice that was sent out, and I really don't have much else to add. The applicant is present. If you have additional questions, I will be happy to try and answer any.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Hilton. Before we talk to our applicant tonight, any questions from council on JZ 23 PUD 146 for Glenwood Ridge? We can start over here on the, well, we'll start on the left since there's nobody over there. But you, Craig, any questions from you, sir? Okay, very well. Any questions on my right? Okay. You guys gonna have any questions for the applicant? You don't want to take your chance. That's Robert Bell. This is the last chance of the year. You gonna let him get a free pass? All right. Thank you, Mrs. Hilton. I'll just say that, I think this is I agree with you. This is a very good detail on this PUD application. And, the bright light in all of this that some of us don't think about is, yes, these are new residents to the city of Jenks. And I assume to the satisfaction of the school district, these are not new students packing the already crowded schools in Jenks Public Schools. So kind of a blessing in disguise here. So good neighbors for us, and frankly, a good job on giving us a very good product. I know that's the word you like to use, but Jenks doesn't have a lot of this. So I appreciate you keeping that in mind when it comes to the diversity of housing in the city of Jenks. So if there's nothing else, we can entertain a motion to approve item number 3. By the way, before you make the approval, I think it would be a good idea to follow the recommendations listed on page,
On the planning commission,
if you go to.
97.
Yes, if you could just please make the recommendations. You don't have to read them all, but for the record, with the noted recommendations listed on page 97 of our packet, I think that would suffice for tonight's purposes, as long as we go back and reference those.
Okay. I recommend to approve, including the recommendations of the staff and planning commission, conditional approval of the request for rezoning from AG to RS3 and CS, the PUD 146 overlay detail for phase 1,
Yeah.
listing all 5 items.
Thank you very much. Hold that second, if you would. It's my mistake. This is a rezoning, so we're going to close the floor. My apologies. We're going to close the floor to council, and since this is a rezoning, we're going to open the floor to the public. If anyone in the public would like to make a comment related to item number 3, you're welcome to do so. My apologies for getting out of order there. We'll leave the floor open for 30 seconds. Sorry. Hey, you don't have to repeat it yet. Doesn't look like anybody's wiggling in their seats, so we will go ahead and close the floor to the public on item 3. There's no comment from the public. We'll come back to council, and I will accept your previous motion, so you don't have to repeat it.
Second.
Thank you both. We have a proper motion and a second on item number 3, ordinance 1634. Let's vote, please.
Murray.
Yes.
Brown. Yes. Emmons.
Yes.
OJ.
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes. Item 4 is the emergency clause for ordinance number 1634. Disregard, we don't have a supermajority.
Great.
Moving on to item 5, ordinance number 1635. And for those of you that are inquisitive, when we talk about the emergency clause, and it's very rare that we don't have enough members here, but we do need to have a supermajority of our members, which is the quantity of 6. We only have 5, and that's pretty rare, so you might see that happen on occasion. So we will skip item 4. Moving on to item 5 is ordinance number 1635, relating to Jenks zoning 23, PUD 147, a request by Nathalie Cornett for a planned unit development to allow for residential and office uses. The general location is at 322 West B Street. We're on page 116 if you're following along, and we welcome back Mrs. Hilton. And my apologies if it was Natalie or Nathalie, but
It's
I
Natalie.
read it as it was written.
That is how she spells her name, and she is not present to defend herself, so.
Okay.
The applicant is present, but Mr. Andrew, because I suddenly was like, I don't know, is present on her behalf. So this is an address 332 West B Street, and if you are familiar with B Street, we have the vacant lots, and then we have two homes, and then once you cross the street, they're kind of catty-cornered to Mojo's. They're going north. There is a property that has had some self-storage for many, many years. It's zone commercial heavy, which is a legacy district. We don't even have it in the UDO anymore. And the home has been used as a residence with an office and mini storage. So this project is keeping the zoning, so the commercial heavy underlying zoning will not be changed, but there is a PUD overlay of PUD 147. So the nice thing about this is if all their dreams come true, the mini storage metal building goes away. And so that's a very big plus. So the question before you this evening is, are you comfortable with continuing the use of the house as a residence and the office, which was originally probably a home, as an office, and then adding 4 apartments along the alley? There would be 3 one-bedrooms and 1 two-bedroom apartment. So, fun fact, this home originally served as a boarding house, and it was built in 1915 and was part of and still is part of the Jenks original town plat. So, Planning Commission approved this 4-2 to 1. We have still 1 vacant seat, and there were 2 members absent. There were a couple of people who came and spoke. Overall, there were very few overall questions. So on page 117, this is a request again for just an overlay district. And that district would allow for single-family residential, some townhome style apartments adjacent to the alley, and an office all on 1 lot. It's almost half an acre. I think it's 0.48. If you look on page 118, there's a zoning map with a yellow arrow that shows you the southeast corner of B and Cedar. And this site is already platted, so platting would not come back. They would work with the city engineer once they tore down the metal storage structure and started activating the apartments. So let's see, let's continue to page 119. I will tell you the chart at the bottom, this is where you have the commercial general. So because commercial heavy is a legacy district, commercial general is provides the standards that you would review a project by. And so it has the standards of commercial general versus PUD 147, and then also RM3, which is residential multifamily 3. And that continues on page 119. At the bottom of page 119, which is also 4 of 8 for the staff report, I put in the use chart, which shows what would be allowed in commercial general versus what the PUD would allow. That's also in their actual PUD document. And at the bottom of page 121, which is page 6 of 8, you can see the actual homes. They have already purchased this, so Tulsa Girls Home owns the property, and they have started renovations. The home is no longer white on the hard corner. It's kind of a sage green and then a little darker green for the office structure. And on page 122 is, in the middle, is the photo that really highlights what exists there now. And we hope this gets approved and that goes away. So staff and Planning Commission recommend approval of JZ 23 PUD 147 to add a restrictive overlay to the commercial heavy legacy district zoning for this particular lot. On page 124, it goes through the actual PUD document. It gives you the index, the development standards, the concept. This is that chart on page 128, which is page 5 of the PUD. That is the same as what I had included. And the project, if approved, would permit up to 5 detached residential buildings, as shown in the conceptual site plan, and there would be a minimum of 16 parking spaces. So they do exceed what would be required by the code. The The apartments that would be built adjacent to the alley would have alley access, and they would have apartment or garages on the ground floor. And then the office parking is adjacent to that, off the alley. And that does meet the requirements of the UDO. It's actually what's preferred in the UDO. On page, Exhibit A, can you see exhibit, is that what's up? Okay. That is where you can kind of very faintly see the outline of the structures and then the outline of the storage. And then if you look on the next page, which is Exhibit B, it shows the zoning and it shows the mini storage torn down and the 4 apartments in place. On page 136 is the zoning notification. And that is all I have. If you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you, Mrs. Hilton. Any questions from council? Mr. Murray? No, sir? Okay. Any questions on my right?
Just a few questions.
Mr. Brown?
Question number 1 would be, is it proposed to leave the legacy CH in this, or are we looking to change it to CG?
It's just staying legacy CH.
Is there a reason why, let me state it the other way. Is there a reason why we would not want to change it away from the legacy so that it's conforming with the UDO?
It automatically becomes CH. It just shows differently on the map. It's potato. I suggested they rezone it, they suggested they did not, and it's fine.
What if we, but for administrative purposes, so to his point, why can't we just, so we'd have to vote to rezone it?
It was not advertised
As a
to be
rezone.
rezoned.
And I guess my concern there is if for some reason they were to relocate at another time, then it's still going to be CH, so we'll still have that legacy zoning classification on that spot.
We would have the legacy zoning, but it's irrelevant. It would just be commercial general.
Okay. Next question I would have would be, because there's multiple lots that are involved here in the second facility to the east, is there a reason why we would leave all of the lots separate versus combining them, since there's, and what made me think about that is the warehouse itself, it's on the property line to the south, extends across all of those lots. So just would seem to make sense if they're developing the whole area, if those lots were combined.
It's not required. Once you build over a lot line, it's all tied together.
Okay, all right. And then the last question, because of the proposed use, and it's not necessarily a city issue, but it might be with the swimming pool in the back, will they have additional restrictions that they'll have to comply with for the foster care side of it for safety reasons, since it would not be residential pool?
It would still be a residential pool, and they would have to meet all the standards in the building code. And it's still a residential use. Anything in addition to that would be regulated through the foster care system, not through the city.
Again, I was just thinking of the classification, if it's going to be utilized for commercial purposes, if that is an issue. Just maybe
Because
something
of
they've
the
got to look at.
office
Yeah.
use?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just a question that
would
they're going
go-
to look at.
sure.
Yeah.
I'll make sure that Mr. Rush is aware of that question and make sure that the proper screening is installed around the pool. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Any other questions from council for Mrs. Hilton? Would anybody have any questions for the applicant? Okay. All right, thank you, Mrs. Hilton. We'll go ahead and close the floor to council, and this is, we are on item number 5. If any members of the public would like to speak or comment on behalf of ordinance number 1635, you are welcome to do so. I'd like you to keep your comments between 3 to 5 minutes, if you could, please. I think it's funny when people turn around and wonder. I was being kind. It's always you. Okay, we'll close the floor on item number 5, ordinance number 1635, and unless there's any last-minute questions or comments from council, we can entertain a motion.
Motion to approve JZ 23 PUD 147 with any noted conditions or exceptions by staff.
Second.
Thank you both. We have a proper motion and second on item 5. Let's vote, please.
Murray. Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Emmons.
Yes.
OJ.
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes. Emergency clause, item 6, we will skip for the previously aforementioned.
It's okay, celebrate, you have Tulsa girls.
Okay. Well, if you're real troopers, you're going to hang out for the rest of the meeting, okay? You too, Mr. Lay. You too, Matt. Kidding, you're dismissed. Okay, we're going to move the order around a little bit here. We are going to, we skipped 6 already, and we are going to move to item number 9, ordinance number 1637. Item 9, ordinance number 1637, related to Jenks zoning 23-689, a request by Alan Betchen for a zone change, the underlying zoning from commercial shopping to commercial general, to allow for selective automotive and assembly uses. We are on page 100, skipping ahead to page 168, and we welcome back Mrs. Hilton. You still wanted to go reverse the order? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council. Mr. Macy, can you pull up the exhibit that I provided for council? Okay. Okay. So, I spoke with the mayor and Mr. Shrout and asked if we could talk about number 9 first, because if you are not interested in rezoning the lots 11, 12, and 13, part of 13, then there would be no reason to move forward necessarily with the PUD, or at least it would dramatically change the impact of the PUD. So we'll talk about the project as a whole, but there will be 2 separate votes. So there'll be a vote for item number 7, and there will be a vote for item number 9. So 2900 West Main was platted, I believe, in 2017, and 2018, the first lot that was platted, it was taken out of the preliminary plat and platted as final plat separately, and that was lot 16. So can you hover over 16? So lot 16 was the first one to be platted out of the whole thing. And then later, they came back and platted the remaining parcels. So tonight, the first question is, are you interested in entertaining a motorsports complex? So what's before you is a rezoning of lots 11, 12, and part of 13. So I drew a hypothetical line that says 13A and 13B. It's pretty close. So 13A is an organization called Bridging Hunger, and I don't know if they've closed yet, but they were very close to closing when we approved the lot split. So I can't confirm if they have closed or not. But they are taking the balance of 13 that's adjacent to the west, and Motorsports Collective is a organization that wants to provide a concept that is membership-driven, providing services for rare, exotic, and collector automobiles. If approved, the use would allow for storage of vehicles, light mechanical work, detailing, events, indoor automotive sales by appointment only, and automobile consignment. So on lots 11, 12, and 13, that's the area that I'm asking you to consider rezoning. So now I'm going to back up a little bit and tell the whole big story. So the Automotive Sports Collective came to the city several months ago and presented their concept. I like the concept as far as overall, but automotive uses are not allowed on commercial shopping land or zoning. So I talked to Mr. Betchen, who is the applicant on behalf of Automotive Sports Collective, and we talked about what it would take to get it approved. In addition to assembly uses are not allowed on commercial shopping, even though we allow warehouses currently on this property. So this entire complex, everything that I've highlighted, lots 1 through 17, could have been built as one warehouse after the other, because that is allowed in the planned unit development. So it hasn't developed that way, and we're really happy about that. We have Casey's in Lot 1. We have O'Reilly's in Lot 2. Lots 3 and 4 no one has brought anything to the city regarding the development of those lots. And then we did major amendment number 2 to allow for a hospital. So that was lots 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 14, 15, and 17. And in the meantime, Speech and Beyond bought lot 10 and built their building. And then nothing, I've had 1 or 2 users come to me regarding block 2, but nothing currently on the table. So with that being said, when we hear from site selectors for different retail and different restaurant uses, et cetera, once you get beyond 300 feet, they really are not very interested. They want to be on the main collector, the main arterial, whatever. So I drew you a line. I'll come over here. Those are going to be the primary lots that are going to be enticing to a site selector for a commercial or restaurant, et cetera. The remaining balance of that land was approved in the original PUD 98 to be warehousing and office and other uses. But to date, I think if we have an approval, major amendment number 2 was for a hospital. I think that's an excellent use. That would be a business park type setting. Provide services to the city. Services are very important for, you get jobs, et cetera. Speech and Beyond is office, excellent, very good location. SoCo is the gymnasium, brings many families to the city. They've been there since 2018. So Bridging Hunger is more of a larger, is it national? I think it's a national organization, or at least they work with national partners to get food and things and resources out. And then now we're looking at these 3 lots. So that was my big story. If you look on page 139 at the bottom, so item number 9 is a rezoning of lots 11, 12, and part of 13 from CS to CG. And this would specifically allow for innovative motorsports concept. If for some reason this concept was not built, and there was a deviation from the site plan and the use, that if the use was not allowed by right currently, they would not be able to do it. If there was a deviation from the site plan that was, it could trigger a major amendment, and they would have to come back anyway. So my point is, the assembly use and the automotive uses cannot happen without the rezoning. So the applicant is asking if you would be willing to consider this automotive use on these lots. The second issue that we had when we talked through the application, if you'll look on page, I'm going to flip around a little bit. Brandon, can you go to this page here, or this one, either one? I can't see it, it's too tiny. One. Sorry, sometimes I try to write it on there, but I didn't today. That's fine. Okay, so the other issue that the applicant had when they brought the concept to the city was, I looked at it and I thought, well, that's kind of a cool building, very modern looking. And then I looked a little closer, and I looked a little closer, and I'm like, I think this is all metal. And I let them know in advance that the PUD for that area for 2900 West Main only allows for 75% masonry, and that we had an ongoing issue with SoCo because SoCo was not built to that standard, and the council had been very gracious to extend their timeline to correct that. I've worked for 4 years having conversations with SoCo, with the applicant, with the owners, with the sellers, and with every person who has come to the city. So I asked Mr. Betjen to, basically I laid it out. If you want to move this project forward, I will need support from the neighbors, from the sellers, and everyone around there because SoCo did not have that support. When SoCo was built, they did not meet the requirement and they did not have the support of the sellers. So the people who sold them the property said, we want you to meet our 75% masonry requirement. It did not happen. It got built without it. They appealed. The appeal was denied with conditions of correcting it. So Mr. Betjen went. He asked everyone for support. He has received support. I've received an email from the hospital. Ms. Coling, who has Speech and Beyond, had many, many, many hours of conversations with staff, with the applicant, with the people who want to do this project, and she has given her support. So the second portion, which would be approval of a major amendment number 3 to PUD 98, would be specifically for lots 11, 12, 13, and 16. So, thank you. Okay, so basically, it would include SoCo, 13A, 13B, Lot 11, and Lot 12. And I'm saying that very slowly and clearly because it gets very confusing really quick. So, I wrote in the PUD, I kind of highlighted, if you look on page 147, it shows you major amendment number 2 was to allow for hospital use, and then major amendment number 3 was an automotive and assembly use. I apologize, Brandon, I'm gonna scoot back to page 140, and this is my last page, I think. Okay. So we covered the rezoning and the lots that would apply to, and now for the major amendment to the PUD. The current language says, so this is page 140, number 2, amendment to architectural standards for 2900 West Main, PUD 98, the applicable PUD overlay district, and the plat date of dedication. The current language says all commercial buildings with the project shall be constructed of 75% masonry on all exterior faces. The path forward, if approved, would say recommendation of lots for lot 16. So this is SoCo, which was developed in 2017 and does not meet the minimum masonry requirement. There would be an exception, so this would be the exact language, to 75% masonry on all exterior faces, and it would state minimum masonry requirements on lot 16 shall be reduced to the amount on the building as currently constructed. So that's 2B3(1). In the event the SoCo building is raised with a Z and new construction is proposed on lot 16, all such new construction shall conform to the original 75% masonry, minimum masonry requirement of PUD 98. In addition to that, there would be additional language that says, all exterior facades that directly abut and face a public right-of-way be constructed of no less than 75% masonry, except those facades facing toward Polecat Creek, which shall either, number 1, meet that minimum masonry requirement of 75%, or be constructed of durable materials and include variations in height, articulation, material, and color, similar to those proposed in PUD 98, Major Amendment Number 3, Document Conceptual Rendering. And this amendment would provide for architectural freedom while protecting the development quality of the project and the city of Jenks. And we do have a letter of support from the ownership, which has been the seller to all of these different entities from 2900 West Main. I did not include the email. I can get it to you if you want it.
Will all those letters of support be in the record?
I can get them.
Okay. Okay.
I know I personally have the one from the hospital and from the 2900
Okay.
and from Ms. Colling.
I'm sorry, I you had good momentum there.
That was a little starting to fade.
Well, I wanted to get your chance for your voice to relax for a moment.
Thank you. So, let's see, additional regulations to be added to PUD 98, Major Amendment Number 3, Type C Transition Zone for landscaping be constructed between lots 10 and 14 with the proposed project. So they are saying that they will add additional screening and transition zone between Ms. Colling's lot and, I think it was the hospital, the edge over there. So, with that being said, yeah, I don't think I have any letters. On page 143 is the actual letter that Mr. Betchen presented as the amendment. Planning Commission did have several comments there. They talked about traffic, which Ms. Colling had talked about, and they talked about the facades, and they were eager to see SoCo and the entire 2900 be developed in a compatible manner, and felt that they could, with confidence, recommend the approval of Major Amendment Number 3 to allow for automotive uses, assembly uses, and amend the facade materials for specific lots. And they recommended approval of rezoning lots 11, 12, and part of 13 to allow for automotive and assembly uses. That's it.
Oh, you're finished?
You're in deep thought, I know.
Well,
There's a lot to
thank you for
absorb.
keeping it super simple for us tonight, and usually you say if there are any questions. I was waiting for your keywords. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Hilton. I'm sure we will have some. We'll go ahead and open the floor to council. We can start on my left. Mr. Murray, any questions related to this? I suspected you would.
Yes. And I spoke with Ms. Hilton before the meeting about this a little bit. I will skip on a little bit. One of the things, what did Ms. Colling confirm with the applicant about noise and speeding vehicles? It was addressed with her. What did they say? How are they going to prevent it? And how was that addressed?
The speeding vehicles is an issue that we have on any public street and would be addressed through the police department. We could always, and they did agree, and the city is, if we need to add additional signage or something like that. Most of these cars never leave the bay. They sit there and they stay warm and they stay dry and they stay happy and they never leave the bay, most of them. So the idea of hot rods running up and down the street as fast as they can could happen any day.
Sure.
It doesn't necessarily mean that this automotive collective group would increase that. And these, any sales is done inside, so everything's kept inside. And it's by appointment only. So they're not just out there wheeling and dealing like a automotive lot. As far as noise, their events would be advertised in advance or notified in advance, and the buffering that they've provided creates a larger separation than what's required by the code. And the actual screening, additional trees, and I think the fencing was all part of what they talked about.
I mean, to the east of there is a barn animal facility that's the school operates. I know nothing about it. I'm just reaching out for questions. Do they keep animals in there? So there is a potential, if there's a noise issue, they can't be notified. So I don't know what kind of issues that's going to raise. So that's just for public opinion, I guess. Okay, back to my thing. One of the things you talked about, that things facing the creek would not meet the criteria. The east wall of SoCo does not face the creek. We have given them extensions and extensions and extensions. I felt like we've really bent over backwards to help them out, and especially during COVID and things. I'm just agitated that basically if we approve this and go with the way its recommendation, the other buildings in there are gonna think, okay, they didn't have to do something. I know from henceforth, people are gonna have to abide by it, but it's like, hey, they didn't have to do it, why do we have to do it? If it's a case of pulling their occupancy letter, then I would say, let's pull it. I just don't feel like they have worked with us to take care of the need that we asked them to take care of. And I'm just concerned that if we approve this going forth like this, that we're just gonna be opening that can of worms and just basically a slap in the face, personally to me. Rest of the council may not feel so. Some of them weren't here during that time. I know the mayor and myself were, but I just know that we tried to work with them, we tried to give them extensions, and it's kind of like, okay, well, we let it go long enough, we're not gonna have to do anything, they'll just change the rules, and if we raise the building, then yeah, well, whoever builds it will meet the rules. You're there, who knows if that's gonna be raised. Let's meet the rules now, so we can at least get our teeth sunk on it. That's my personal, thank you for letting me vent.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. I remember, yeah, I know you led the charge on that, and I think in this particular case, it was a battle of wills and a battle of time, and enough time passed, and basically the neighborhood, if you will, changed their rules, and in this case, is this a battle you want to fight, or do you want to let it go? You don't have to answer my question, I'm just...
Well, and thank you for asking. I mean, Casey's built, met the requirement.
Yeah.
O'Reilly's built, met the requirement. The Speech and Beyond built, met the requirement. SoCo was there before the rest of them and did not meet the requirement.
So later on this evening, if you, at your discretion, if you want to make a motion that includes anything related to requirements for Lot 16, you certainly can. Any other questions related to the rest of the, okay, thank you, Mr. Murray. Moving on to council on my right. Anyone, Mr. Brown?
Yeah, a couple questions and a couple comments. Question one, lots 11, 12, and 13B that is being asked for zoning changes. Do we know the total area? I thought I saw a reference to 19 acres, but I think that's actually the whole plat. Do we know what those three lots, the total areas for those three lots?
Yeah, development area B for a total is 19 acres.
It is 19 acres.
Yeah, that's not this. Let me see if I can find it on,
Yeah, it was 19.83, I think.
I think it would probably be on this page. You wanna pull that up? 5 acres.
It's five acres?
Well, let's see, phase 1 and 2 are 5 acres, and then .22, yeah, it's 5 acres.
Okay, all right. So if we looked at this request, we're asking for rezoning of the 3 lots. We're asking for an exception to accommodate an existing exception that you were not responsible for. So making an exception to clear up an exception. And then also permitted use for automotive. And I fully agree with you that the warehousing was permitted for business park. However, on all the prior discussions we had on 2900 Main, all the discussion really was focused on commercial. It was talking about bringing in business. And when we think about the fact that it's CS, CS activity then, while it is farther away from Main, if those lots were combined, if there's a hospital going in, there's going to be people in that hospital, both staff and those that are being served by it. So there's a commercial need, which basically elevates the need for more commercial retail to support that. So anything that we would make accommodations for could potentially take away available space that could be used to serve the community as a whole and the retail business that we've tried to bring into this area, which is a gateway to the city of Jenks. So I've got some concerns about that. The part of this automotive use includes rebuilding, correct?
Rebuilding?
Maintenance. In other words,
Oh, Light maintenance.
So, light maintenance, so the question I would have would be, can engine work be completed on that? Because my experience has been around automobiles, anytime there's maintenance work that's happening, especially on engine work, there's going to be noise. And then that impacts, you've got the hospital and all the other retail that has come into that area, plus Speech and Beyond and then Bridging Hunger. So is that going to happen? Personal view is that this is changing the feel of the development to more of an industrial storage area, similar to what we have on 121st Street down by the fire station. And then the last piece then, again, going to the metal facade, it does change the look and feel. And going back to the accommodations we had with SoCo, some of the things that we've asked them to do, they could have come back in and put an exterior facade over the existing building. We looked for additional landscaping. So there were a number of things that the Planning Commission had offered as solutions versus just raising the building. I don't think any of us wants to see a building leveled, but I think there are other solutions to SoCa versus making another exception that then creates another exception and another exception. So I do have some challenges of the number of things that we're looking at to amend in order to accommodate this, and I don't see it as highest and best use as what was planned for 2900 West Main.
Mr. Brown, do you have a question for Mrs. Hilton? Or
Yeah,
comment?
I was asking about the total land, and then again, whether to be rebuilding of engines with the noise.
I would defer to the applicant on
Okay.
that question.
Yep.
I would assume
yeah.
there would be some tinkering with engines.
We can let's have a free flow discussion here, and I
Sure.
would tell you, because I think Councilor Murray and I were the only two here, and this PUD was passed before anybody was here. Nobody was here in 2016, so this is me and you talking. I think the original intent of this was everything you thought it would be. I've called the real estate agent 6 or 7 times over the last couple of years, and to get a feel for why isn't this developing, and it's simply because it's costly and it's dirt in the city of Jenks. I think the neighbors or the HOA or whatever you want to call them had high hopes and high intentions for what this would be. I think we lost on SoCo. We can continue to fight that fight. I don't know why they didn't do landscaping, and in the end, we have to decide whether or not we're going to take our lumps on this one and let it go. My personal feeling is that something's going to be built in front of it on Lot 17, and we will never see that ugly building ever again.
True.
And I think the general public feels the same way, because I know that's the comments I've received. I would say that, given your comment on how this is changing the feel, the good news is this: all of these things are being built in the very back, and for most of the part, the public will never see any of these things. I think, is it Mr. McCullough? I think the good news is, I think he brought a really cool project to the city of Jenks. And just like Frontier Justice, we are getting something that makes us Jenks and not just any other city. Nobody else will have this. And it's if you look at the renderings, it's a really cool project, and I frankly liked it as a metal building. I thought it was exactly the way it should be, but I'm not going to argue with the will of the people or the council that it needs to meet requirements. But keep in mind, those heavy requirements, the neighborhood has now decided to lessen the requirements to be in this neighborhood. And even to Mrs. Colling's point, I think she's become satisfied now that because the neighborhood has decided that the standards can't be met and nobody is willing to move into the neighborhood, it seems like they've relaxed the restrictions quite a bit. So I would say, having met the owner of Bridging Hunger and spending a lot of time researching the Motorsports Collective, Bridging Hunger is doing God's work right here in the middle of Jenks. They already are here in Jenks, and they need a bigger space. And if you've met Pastor Baker, I think we're pretty happy. We've got a very good neighbor in him. Yep. His building will probably end up looking a lot like SoCo, but it's behind SoCo, and nobody will see it. And the Motorsports Collective will be a very cool building, I imagine, one way or the other, and I don't think it'll be seen. And I don't even necessarily know that it'll be heard, because when we talk about maintenance of vehicles, we're not talking about where you can come in and have just about anything done. We're talking about exclusive cars with, there's very few mechanics that can probably do this kind of work, so we're talking about an exclusive club. I think it's kind of worthy of being in the city of Jenks. Don't really have a problem with it, but I can tell you this, it'd be a different story if it was up on lots 5 and 6.
Right.
Then we would have auto maintenance being visible to our public on a main street. To your concern about where are these people gonna eat, if the hospital does get built, do we want these people leaving work, driving up down Main Street to go eat? Probably not. But I would think, while we have an opportunity, and since nobody's buying anywhere in Block 2, we need to start planning now for what's gonna happen in Block 2. And I don't know how big those lots are, but if we want them to go eat, right now, it's lots 3, lots 4, and anywhere on Block 2. And I don't think there's any more development area around Gateway Mortgage. There's nothing left over there, is there?
I think there's one more.
There's one more? So we still have some opportunity to feed them and to, create some businesses that generate sales tax. But in this case, if we're not excited about a hospital and jobs and services, we're in the wrong business. And I frankly, looking at Bridging Hunger and the Motorsports Collect, their mission is so unique, I think they should be in the city of Jenks. So I'm welcoming to them because of who they are and what they do. But I would agree, even Rod Baker probably wouldn't get a pass to put this warehouse up on the frontage.
Right.
So the good news for me, just between me and you talking, is that they're building in the back.
Right.
So I think that, in my opinion, that's a good place for them to be. And as we continue to plan the future with her, we need to do what we can to secure Block 2 to make sure that we're not getting any industrial or warehouse use over there to whatever extent we legally can. That's the most you and I have talked all week. Huh?
And then there's a question I would have then following that, having a dialogue. If we were to approve this, can we make that restrictive? Would the developers be willing to restrictive language on the uses of the remaining properties in the area?
You're
So that we
asking if
don't-
they would amend
So
the,
that we don't get any more warehouse use or storage use.
Can we limit, can we, excuse me, can we limit Block 2 to commercial shopping, or even more specifically to sales tax generation, something other
And
than,
that's the other piece.
Professional
because
services.
We're not generating any sales tax revenue off of storage units.
is there any selling, does the Motorsports Collective sell anything? What do they sell? Did I hear yes?
cars.
Oh, they
You
sell
don't,
cars.
you don't get retail sales tax from.
But we don't, that doesn't benefit us, okay.
No.
So these are private sale, okay.
Yeah.
Well, nevertheless, I still stand by my point. I think if they're gonna be anywhere in Tulsa County, I think it'd be pretty cool for them to be one of our neighbors. But I think we can talk offline or work with Marseille to figure out what we can legally do to kind of limit the uses in Block 2.
Yeah, again, I'm just thinking, again, having a dialogue here, the fact that we're landlocked, limited space.
Yeah.
And this is another area that we're losing. Once that goes in, there's nothing else that's going to go in there to support the adjacent residential areas or the other residential businesses that came in. And I don't want those individuals that are using the hospital and medical facilities to go north to Tulsa Hills to get a sandwich at lunch.
Agreed.
And Counselor, I think the point that Marseille made, if we're talking about these parcels, within the approved PUD, they can be
Warehouse.
warehouse. And so I think that's relatively, I mean, obviously there's a definition, I don't have it in front of me, but.
And there's no disagreement with that. I just know that when the whole development came to us, all of the discussion was about promoting the commercial retail, not more warehouse space, not storage space, not industrial uses. So just want to make sure we're avoiding a bait and switch of what we hope to have and what we're winding up with. And I don't know enough about this particular enterprise and their market at this point in time to know what it will bring to Jenks. Again, as long as it brings it to Jenks and not to South Tulsa.
Well, I would agree. We had hopes for what it could be, but the law and our hope don't always coincide. And
Correct.
the free market dictated that the
Correct.
price was too high.
Yeah.
and the right buyer came, and in this case, the buyer delivers food to the needy in Oklahoma, and they sell classic cars, and the free market has made a decision that that's the current value, so.
Is there any hope, Ms. Hilton, that anything could come in? I realize with the creek there, that's a challenge, but the agricultural property that's to the south?
I do not think that that is it's not a developable lot.
Okay. So it's really, anything that goes in there, it's really going to be at the back end with nothing ever appearing to the south of it?
Everything south of Franklin
That's
is
the
the
wetland.
reserve area.
Yeah, it's a reserve area, okay.
Thank you,
And
Mr. Brown. Any
That's
other
it.
questions,
No-
comments?
No other questions, thank you.
Anyone else from council? Mr. Emmons? Mayor OJ? Nope. Nothing? Okay. Do any of you have questions for the applicant, Mr. Betchin? The harder questions? No? Okay, very well. We'll close the floor. Mrs. Hilton, you can take a break, relax your voice. Close the floor to council. We will open the floor to the public. If anyone has any comments, concerns, questions related to item number 9, you are welcome to do so. In a name, address, and hopefully 3 to 5 minutes. Good evening, ma'am.
Probably shorter. Catherine Linhart, 777 West 106th Street South, Jenks. My questions are, what are the hours of operation? And also, there's a website. I mean, so this has been out for many months that they've had this up. So I remember seeing it a long time ago. I agree, it's kind of a cool concept, but there's a members club. There's a venue proposed, I think, for like 200 people. So, you know, you're just talking about the first couple lines of their website: consignment, acquisition, accessories, customization, detail shop, repair and maintenance, vehicle storage. I mean, typically, I think these are found around racetracks, you know, like where you have the dealer club, it looks like. I was surprised there wasn't a racetrack attached to it. But as far as sales tax, you know, does that come from the members club and the event rental? I guess that's my question.
So your first question was, what are the hours of operation?
Hours of operation, and then I think you're getting sales tax probably off of some kind of membership or members club, or looks like they'd have to have a liquor license, and then the event venue rental for 200 people.
Okay,
I'm not opposed to it, I'm just asking the questions.
yeah.
And for you to consider it, because it sounded like, you know, this website wasn't provided as part of that package to talk to people.
Well, when I first heard of this, I went to the website and I looked at the original location. I think it's in Washington State, and there wasn't a racetrack anywhere. It was, frankly, I'm far more impressed with what they plan to do here than what they started with in, I believe it's Washington. It could be Oregon. It's been a few months since I've looked at it, but do we know hours of operation? If not, we can certainly ask, the applicant may know.
That's your concern for.
By appointment only,
Okay,
and I'm sure events would be probably evenings.
okay. We can probably see if the applicant knows. But if you don't have enough garage space, you can drop a few cars off.
Exactly.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the public related to item number 9? Good evening, ma'am. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Charlotte Montgomery, 10612 South Fir Avenue. Is this in a TIF? I believe it is, right? Okay, it's in a TIF. I really like the concept, especially of the motor vehicle storage, high-end cars. I think that's pretty cool. I like the way it looks. But I do think that it's a fair point that maybe going forward, if you can limit things that don't sales generate, limit this use, and then limit what is requested to this lot only, and then either by PUD or however you wish to do it, limit it because it's in a TIF district. You need to generate sales revenue. So it seems kind of like a win if you do it that way, because you still get that business coming in, but you still also recognize that you've got to have more sales revenue coming into that TIF, and therefore limit what goes in the future. My second question is this. I've been through all the planning and city council meetings with the PUD and with everything on discussion of SoCo. And it was my understanding that there was, the reason why it wound up not meeting the masonry requirement was some kind of issue on the city's part. If that's true, that it was the city that failed to either enforce that or whatever it was, then I think you have to step aside and say, you know, we messed up on this one. But if it was on the side where SoCo, they built it, and then when the city went out and said, oh my gosh, what did you do? Then to me, that's on SoCo. Those are my opinions. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to answer her first question, or I
Well,
know you wanted to comment, I think?
Yeah, there's a couple points. The first is, this TIF is primarily property tax driven, and so anything, whether it's office warehouse, automotive use, hospital, even if it's not generating sales tax, I think only half a penny of the sales tax goes into this TIF. So this would benefit the TIF. And my concern would be, a concern I've had with our existing TIFs is, because they're property tax driven, we get things that generate property tax but don't generate sales tax, which would be this automotive use. But at this point, the TIF is pretty much maxed out. I think it was a $12 million TIF, and it's like at 11.9 million in applications. And so it would help the developers that have basically built this, if this automotive use and other things were built before 2029, because they'd be generating property tax that would be going into the TIF. And then on SoCo's masonry, it's really a big miscommunication between previous employees that are no longer here, and this, I think, goes back to 2016, 2017. And, you know, an employee did not have the authority to adjust the requirements to a PUD, but maybe was kind of giving mixed signals to the developer. And so that's, I think, why we've been so lenient over the years. But at the end of the day, the council sets the policy of the PUD, and, you know, staff is supposed to enforce that. And that's why I think that we've been lenient. And I think that I'm sympathetic to everybody's points here, that we have been lenient, but someone didn't follow the rules. I'm also sympathetic to the developer that maybe thought they were getting mixed signals from staff at the time. But at the end of the day, we have to make a decision one way or the other.
Thank you, Mr. Shrout. I think it might be a good idea. We can go ahead and invite the applicant to come forward. If there's anything you want to kind of make any closing arguments, maybe if you could help answer the question of if you're familiar with the hours of operation and any other, we'll call it selling points, if you will, related to the Motorsports Auto Collect would be appreciated.
Yes, sir. Mayor, Council, thank you for your time. Alan Betchen, AAB Engineering. I have the luxury of actually being here for the original PUD when it was approved. So all the way back to that original PUD that was done. And that original PUD even contemplated an assisted living use being allowed to the south. So I can say from the developer's perspective, whether that was how it was communicated and what it was perceived as, I can never tell you definitively, but from the developer's perspective, there was always non-commercial uses that were contemplated to the back. It's just the size and the complexity of the tract. It just doesn't lend itself to that normal, traditional commercial retail strip. This use is something that's very unique. There isn't anything like this. We've actually had several clients look at trying to find places to do this, and they're consolidating a lot of things. And I want to be very clear, in the application, we try to be very honest and transparent about all the things that could possibly be argued are going to happen. That whenever it's light maintenance, we're talking about replacing batteries or windshield. I mean, this is really a storage facility for very, very high-end vehicles. The level of storage facility is they go out and roll the vehicle 2 feet back every couple of weeks so they don't get flat spots on the tires. So this is not a high traffic use. This isn't a high volume turnover use. This is really storage and community driven, that those people that have that type of vehicle and are into that kind of a car enthusiast want a place that they can gather and really be around other people and admire each other's vehicles. The consignment opportunities are all really, the sales are related to if someone has a vehicle that they have in storage, hey, would you like to find someone that wants to buy that vehicle? So it's by appointment call. This isn't, a car lot. There's no PA. There's no noise. The intent is this is very, very high end, very, very discreet. The renderings, and I did not do SoCo. I'm going to be very clear about that. However, I have been involved in kind of machinations of how to fix the issues that are there. There's a point where, as the development group that still retains ownership, hey, if this is now supported by everybody they've sold to, that was a big thing to them. They didn't want to feel like they were changing the rules on anything that they'd marketed to previous people, and not affecting their ability to market future properties, which it hasn't given the contracts that they currently have. They could support it, especially given that the remaining tracks are on the other side of the green space and the creek that is on the east, and then really oriented more toward Main Street. So not focused internally on SoCo. Everybody would love it to be retail, them most of all, because that generates a much higher per square foot value. The problem is it just doesn't have the frontage that drives that math. I mean, let's look at 2900 and how long it took just to get retail uses, and that has Highway 75 frontage. And there's still another parcel sitting available north of the hotel tract on that. So this is creating something unique and filling in a need that apparently exists in the community that can be met here in Jenks, and brings in relatively affluent, high-end dollars that are going to spend money in Jenks. I can't tell you they're not going to go north to Tulsa Hills at some point in time, but I would say that this clientele is probably more likely to go east than they are north from a level of service that they're going to expect and want. So I think this is what you want. The ownership group is very supportive of this. I will say the developer of this project has spent a lot of time talking to the adjoining neighbors to try to get support. This has not been something that they just ramrodded down. They went and had extensive negotiations trying to make sure that we could come up with a true balance. I tend to, my personal opinion, and the reason why Marseille was so adamant, I think, about SoCo is there just comes a point where we need to resolve the issue, whatever that resolution may be. And this is one that now we have letters of support against that isn't, and I think it's important that if the building's raised, it has to conform whenever it's reconstructed. So you were still going to get that masonry facade. The concept with this was anything that's facing north is going to be buffered by a true screening buffer yard. And so that yard isn't going to jog up and around the north side of SoCo. So if they do anything other than just what it is, it has to conform. And that's what we're trying to keep. I think the hours from the storage, it's 9 p.m. was my understanding. Was with it, but I would defer. I mean, I need to confirm that with the client, but that was what we had talked about originally. Was he was kind of, it's not a frequented use, and then the events are by schedule. So I mean, it will be in the evening. That there is not heavy. They're not spraying down motors here. That's not the intent. They're not doing heavy maintenance. I want to be very clear about that. I'm happy to answer any other questions specifically. I know this is kind of a omnibus proposal sitting in front of you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Mr. Murray, any questions for Mr. Betcham while I have him here?
Well, and not really, I guess, just kind of looking at the drawings and stuff on this thing. How will this building or the buildings there meet the criteria of 75% masonry?
So the elevations as presented in that drawing, so it's 75% masonry for all exterior facing facades. So trying to be cognizant of we have a bunch of smaller buildings that are internally focused that you don't really see from the adjoining parcels, right? Except for the southern face, which is always going to be green space because it's up against the Polecat Creek floodplain. That's forever not developing south of, so if it faces directly south. And the reason why we were making special exception for that is that rendering, so that red front tapered, is what you see to the south. And that's a very kind of iconic look that they're trying to create architecturally. And that's why we're asking for special exceptions. But it still protects the corridor that goes back up of saying, hey, if you're on these corridors that are outside facing or to the front, you still have to meet the standards. So basically next to, on a lot 11, right next to Speech and Beyond, you're not gonna have a buffer yard and then a non-masonry facade facing the front. They're gonna be very consistent, at least in the requirement for masonry in it. So all exterior facing, east and west facades that abut the public right-of-way still have to meet, and that elevation does. So it's in columns, and I'm not an architect, I just thought it looked nice. So he tells me it's 75%, and I can guarantee you staff is very cognizant of making sure everything's 75% when we build them now.
Thank you.
So in your opinion, would the exterior facing buildings be building, okay, we're on the wrong map, but, go- exterior to the parcel.
Exterior
yeah,
to
like-
the parcel, so abutting public right-of-way.
Okay. so this-
The one exception is if you're facing the Polecat Creek,
Okay.
and then we put very specific requirements of, it's either gonna be what we show you, or you're gonna meet the standards.
Yeah.
So that way, we're not getting vast deviations that are out of what, I don't ever wanna be the guy that stands here and says, this is what we're gonna do, and then I come back later and you're like, well, you told me that before. So I'm super cautious of that. We write it in the code as best I know how as the applicant.
Okay. Good, Mr. Murray? Okay. Anyone else in council? Questions?
Yes,
Mr. Hemmings?
how is this going to differ from the garage condos just to the north?
So,
Garage condos that are in Tulsa?
So the concept with this is this is, so I'm gonna put my, Mr. McCullough face on. So this is, it's a consolidated offering. So this is more community driven. It does have more car storage. And it's putting all of the services that are more, my understanding of the garage condos project is it almost turned into more man cave. This is truly car storage and an event store.
So no build-outs allowed inside?
Yeah, no, this is not,
Tenants?
you're not leasing a space, you are renting. So some of this is stacked storage, some of this is exterior. So this is very much, the intent is truly car storage and then the community space that is in the aspect of that main building. So a little different, I think, from that.
Got it, thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Betchen? You know, just if you're involved in the future for Lot 17, if you're a part of that, it's going to be by the book.
I understand.
Yeah.
That we've
Been dealing with this SoCo thing for a very, very long time.
so that's in the hospital. That's actually contracted in the hospital parcel.
17 is?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
So
all right.
that's the thing is now you're kind of left with
Disregard then, that's.
commercial pieces on the north and then
Yeah.
the hospital and then, and the users to the right, so on the east side, especially for those northern two lots, have very much, all the pieces that we've looked at have been more retail, commercial oriented. Higher, the cost per square foot is a multiple of 3, so it takes a higher standard. I mean, you just can't go do storage on it. And I think we actually had some restrictions about office whenever you got closer. Like you couldn't do the industrial on the east side anyways. I think, I can't remember. But there was some protections for the neighborhood.
Okay. Last call for Mr. Betchen. Anyone else? Anyone else on council? And close the floor to the council. We can reopen the floor one more time for public comment. You could ask the question up here. It'd be great for the audience, please.
So as far as the traffic pattern, because a lot of high-end car users obviously use semi-trucks to bring their cars to storage. So how is that going to work on the plan? Do they have access from the main road?
So for the public, the questions asked
Yeah,
is,
basically.
a lot of these cars typically are brought to and from storage in
That's what I
on a
they don't drive them in.
Semi-truck,
That's the whole
so-
idea of this, you know, it's not a typical garage mechanic setup. It's high-end, a lot of people don't
Yeah.
drive their cars in, so it's something to consider anyway.
Yeah, I think the simple answer is these are public roads, so there's not much we can do about that, but good question. Okay, we'll close the floor to the public on item number 9. Last call for council, questions or comments? If so, light your mic. If not, we can hear a motion with conditions, whatever the appetite is.
Is, the question, we are discussing number 9 for a zone change, correct? Okay.
Yes, from commercial shopping to commercial general. Yes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you both. We have a proper motion and a second for item 9, ordinance number 1637. Vote, please.
Murray?
Yes.
Brown? Yes. Emmons?
Yes.
OJ?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes, item 10, emergency clause, we will skip. Moving on to item number 7, going back to page 139, ordinance number 1636, related to Jenks zoning 23, PUD 98.MA3, a request by Alan Betchen for approval of major amendment number 3 to PUD 98 to allow for automotive and assembly uses and a change in the material requirements. Same topic we've discussed already. We're on page 139. Any questions for Mrs. Hilton or the applicant related to number 7? If so, light your mic. Mr. Brown, no?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think since we've heard it, we're ready for a motion.
Last call. Anyone else? If not, Mr. Murray.
I don't have an issue necessarily with what we've discussed for his proposal. Again, mine is just going back to SoCo, that we hold them accountable. If everybody else is going to have to meet the requirement, they need to too, and I don't know if that can be pulled from this, or if we need to do something different, or if that's another day.
Everybody would not be meeting that requirement, because we were making an exception for bridging hunger and for the automotive use. I said the as presented, everyone is, SoCo and Bridging Hunger and the automotive use would all receive an exception, not just SoCo. So they are not being singled out as an exception. There are exceptions to lots 16, 13, 11, and 12 for facade materials.
So it's like essentially we're changing the covenants for the lower half of this subdivision, if you will, yeah, speaking in neighborhood terms.
Okay, then, so how, okay, never mind.
I mean, you have a right to make a motion with an exception if you'd like.
Well, it was basically kind of trying to make a motion to an extent that SoCo still needs to meet the criteria that we set down back in 2016, and that we gave them extension after extension. The rest of these say they're going to meet the 75% masonry towards Elm, towards the east, towards the west. I understand facing the creek, you know, the fish are not going to care what masonry type of agreement they have. And that's fine with me, but if the east, west, and north have to meet the criteria, and that's all I'm saying. If Mr. Beckham is saying that, yeah, he'll do that in his area, and if the Hunger folks will do that, that's great. But I just want SoCo to do the same thing. So if I need to make a motion along that line, then my motion is SoCo finishes what they're supposed to have done. Now, it may be out of order, I don't know, Ms. Nolan?
No, that'd be brought up under new business, right? That's not a proper motion.
But then
for
if we
item
vote
7.
on this, then it's grandfathering it.
Well, the option you have is to not approve.
So-
Mr. Shrout.
You could make that motion. I mean, yeah, it would be amending the recommendation and make the motion.
Yeah, I think it would be essentially amending the recommendation, the staff
Yeah.
recommendation.
The recommendation is we change the standards for SoCo for lot 13, 13B, 11, 12, and they'd all be generally the same.
I thought they already said, I thought Mr. Bacon was explaining that they would be the same
Maybe
as
this
far
is
as, his development, it would meet the 75% from the north
That
and the east and
faces the
west.
exterior. So like 13B, 11, and 12 is going to be the, if approved, the automotive use. So the exterior facing the road, all of that facing north would meet that 75% requirement, but anything interior, because there's going to be many buildings. So if you have a building that's facing west and has an east facing, or it's on the west property line and has a eastern wall, no one's going to see it, so it doesn't have to have the masonry. It is complicated.
Chris, would it be acceptable for Mr. Murray to make a motion that we approve item number 7 with the exception of lot 16?
Can I make a point of reference on that?
Not yet,
Mr. Mayor?
please,
Okay,
hold on.
sorry.
Would that be acceptable? Does that accomplish? And before we do that, can we rewind and try to remember, we are not, if attaching brick or masonry to the SoCo building at that point was going to avoid the warranty of the building. And looks like I got an engineer
Correct.
standing here, so we
But-
can rehash that discussion if we need to, but I think we gave up on the masonry requirement of that building, and we tried to apply landscaping standards, and I really don't remember why they couldn't plant trees, but if it's, because what?
Well, because the parking, they didn't have the space to do it. And I just, this is, I guess from staff's perspective, we see a problem. There's a miscommunication. Nobody was, the mayor and Councilor Murray, you may have been on council at the time that this was approved, and I was here, but Marseille wasn't here. We didn't have the same staff, and we've tried to fix this issue over time, and absent, literally, I guess the city pulling the CO, what is, I would guess, still temporary CO, and closing down SoCo.
They've been in business 6 years.
Yeah.
With a temporary occupancy permit?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is what we think perhaps is just kind of saying, let's move forward.
Cover it up.
No, I don't think cover, we're having a
Surround
very
it with
public.
prettier things.
Yeah.
I thought our understanding was when we went through this, because I came in right after the previous council, and I thought that the compromise was, since they weren't going to do the masonry, we required the landscaping, and then they never did it.
It's not,
Isn't that correct?
Something, they've not done anything
Right, 'cause
from
they're
my
supposed to
standpoint of
block
what
the
we
view from
gave
the
them.
street.
Right.
Remember that we had lots of trees and bushes that were gonna be taller, and that never
If I
happened?
may on that one,
Yes.
because I was very involved in that conversation. The problem is there's not space for them, so their curbs are essentially on the lot line. So what they were having to do that was go back and get the adjoining developer to consume property that was developable in an easement that was dedicated to landscape that then he couldn't do anything with, and they basically reached an impasse of, why would I give you something that isn't really anything to my benefit, it's just to my detriment because you didn't do what you were supposed to originally.
Yeah, we had actually, the planning commission, we had made recommendations besides landscaping. We gave the offer of utilizing some architectural enhancements, build some columns, cover up the metal that was there. So they had other opportunities, but I think at this point, it's moot. We don't have a time machine here where we can jump back and go back 6 years. And the concern that I have is pulling the lot 16 out as an exception. This would be a question for our attorney. That would seem like a punitive response to make the exception for the other lots, but leave SoCa out of that. So I think that would be an inappropriate step.
And if I could just add, I'm not saying the mayor or Councilor Murray did, but there was a mistake made. Staff made a mistake years ago. And my concern is if we try to rectify that mistake by forcing them to do what the PUD says, if they've been open for 6 years with a temporary CO, and we have suffered their lack of masonry, and then we go allow other parcels to not have masonry, I would just be concerned about what our exposure is on that.
Yes. Litigation landmine.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Stroud. Craig, I agree with you. And to his point, it's not your fault, and it's not my fault. This was before us, but I guess the question is do we just want to put this to bed?
I bent over backwards and gave them extension, and they didn't meet it. I'll pull my motion. It's a moot point.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Appreciate adding context to that. Is this still number 7? Yes. Okay. No other comments, no other questions? We can entertain a motion on item 7.
Make a motion that we approve item number 7, JZ 23 PUD 98 MA3, in conjunction with the prior action we've already taken.
Can you clarify that just a little bit?
Yeah, essentially approve item number 7, JZ 23 PUD 98 MA3 as presented.
Okay, second.
Oh, thank you. We have a proper motion and a second on item number 7, ordinance number 1636. Let's vote, please.
Murray.
No.
Brown.
Yes.
Emmons.
Yes.
OJ.
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes. Item 8 is the emergency clause. We will
Pull it.
pull. Moving on to other, juggling all these numbers, I think that's it. We are moving on to other business. Tonight's city manager's report, Mr. Shroud.
Mayor and all members of council, the total sales, vision, and use tax collection for December's deposit for November 2023 was a little over $1 million. It was an increase of 3.7% from the previous month's deposit. It was a decrease of 2% from the same month last year. And right now, for the fiscal year to date, we're down about 1%. We're hoping that with the opening of ACE, Roy's, and Frontier Justice, that we'll see an uptick in that. The Main Street project, the contractor continues to install curb and gutter and base course materials on the north side of Main Street. Birch Street will remain closed to traffic until after the pavement has been replaced. On Elm Street, from B Street to K Place, the contractor has installed sidewalk from C to G Street. And then upcoming events, City Hall will be closed for Christmas on Monday, December 25th, Tuesday, December 26th, and then for New Year's on Monday, January 1st, and Monday, January 15th for Martin Luther King Day. And the Jenks Chamber Annual Banquet will be Thursday, January 18th. If you could let Sarah know if you would like to attend, we'll get you registered, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that from Heather.
Thank you, Mr. Shroud. In lieu of any committee reports, we can open the floor to council. Questions, comments, notifications for the public? Anyone? So light your mic. Okay, very well. No mayor's report. I would say if you're a member of the community and you are a veteran, or if you are someone who supports veterans or wants to assist veterans, we are having our first organized meeting of the Jenks Veterans Advisory Council on Tuesday, January 23rd. It'll be right here at City Hall from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. This is a somewhat informal group of a few people who are moving to make this more of an official and a organized group that represents the city of Jenks and its veterans. So if you are interested, I have a calendar event on my Facebook page, the mayor's Facebook page, January 23rd, 6:30, right here at City Hall. And for those of you that have asked, I am planning, hopefully in January or early February, a town hall meeting not the kind that requires the chamber support or staff support, but the old school kind where we just sat down and had coffee at a research. So I will be making that announcement sometime soon. And like I said, we should plan for that for either late January or early February. And that is all I have. If there's nothing else from council, then we will go ahead and call for adjournment at 7:52. And I would like to request a small restroom break before we proceed. Is that acceptable? Thank you. We adjourn. Thank you. It is Tuesday, December 9th of 2023. The time is 8:04 PM, and Mr. Macy will verify our attendance.
Murray?
Here.
Brown? Here. Klein? Short? Emmons?
Here.
OJ?
Here.
Chairbox.
Here, item number 1 is the consideration and appropriate action relating to tonight's consent agenda. Any motions for consent agenda, item 1?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you both. We have a proper motion second. Let's vote, please.
Murray?
Yes.
Brown? Yes. Emmons?
Yes.
OJ?
Yes.
Chairbox.
Yes, item 2 we will pull. Moving on to item 3 is the approval of the purchase of real property located at Raglan Plaza 1, North 9th Street, Jenks, Oklahoma, authorizing the city manager to execute real estate purchase agreement. We are on page 91, and we welcome Mr. Carr. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the authority. I want to talk a little bit about the intersection of Main Street and 9th. We've had a lot of traffic increase in the last few years. Since 2019, there's been a 14% increase in traffic flow to 34,000 cars per day. If you've ever gone through the intersection, which I'm sure everybody has, at various times it gets a little congested at that location. On our side of the road, of the bridge, there's 2 lanes eastbound and 2 through lanes westbound with a left turn lane. Now, if you go on the Tulsa side, there's 8 lanes on that side. We've only got 5. And the point that gets congested the most is when somebody westbound stays in the right-hand lane and they want to go straight, and they don't turn, and everybody gets congested because they're just sitting there. So we believe that something should be done to relieve that congestion at that location. A PUD was placed on property north of that intersection for a coffee shop that was approved both by the Planning Commission and the City Council. But one of the major concerns was that of the traffic issues on the bridge at that location. Staff was also a little concerned about how the flow of traffic would be going north on 9th Street, also with some of the way the traffic would go in and out of that location. It's now come that the development that was proposed there has since gone away, and the developer has canceled their plans on developing that property, and the property is now for sale again. So what we would like to be able to do is get control over that property so that we can do some improvements of the intersection. There was an appraisal done on that property for us in September of 2022. And the property was valued at $750,000 at that point. So we're recommending the approval of purchasing that real estate property at Raglan Plaza 1. And we will need also on the next agenda item is the approve a supplemental appropriation of $750,000 from fund balance to be budgeted to a risk management account that's listed in that agenda. I'm just not going to talk about that agenda. Normally Robert Seseda would do that, but he's not here, so I'm taking both of these items at the same time. But if you have any questions, be glad to try and answer them. But we're recommending approval of purchase of that property and authorize the city manager to negotiate that price.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carr. We'll open the floor to council. Start on my left. Mr. Murray, questions, concerns, comments?
I have a question. I don't see a copy of the appraisal from 2022. That was,
I emailed that to council today. So what the appraisal is based on is vacant land sales in Jenks within the last 1 to 2 years. And so we're pretty familiar with this based on our acquisition of property on Main Street between the railroad tracks and Elm. We had Dutch Brothers, Starbucks, the gas station where Salad and Go is now located, the sale of the property of JDI Sprinkler, which is planned to be torn down. And so $18 a square foot is lower than in some cases, less than half of the price per square foot of Dutch Brothers, Starbucks. Well, Starbucks was 13 something a square foot for vacant land in 2019, but the rest of those were significantly higher. And we purchased property, I believe, from Carla Harris, the chiropractor, and the Trojan Square strip center. We spent significantly more than $18 a square foot. I would also mention that this is the busiest intersection in the city of Jenks. It has more cars it sees more cars than any other intersection in the entire city. This intersection also happens to see more traffic than the Tulsa side. And if you think of the Tulsa side eastbound, there's 2 left-hand turn lanes going north on Riverside, 2 through lanes, and 1 right turn lane. There's also 2 through lanes going west, and 1 protected right-hand turn lane off of Riverside. So Tulsa has 8 lanes over there to basically try to empty out the bridge, and we have 5, even though our side receives more traffic overall. And I think that if we try to look at this intersection in the long term, not just in the next year, 5 years, 10 years, but in the next 25, 50, 100 years, we're going to need a bigger intersection. And right now, I think the easiest thing to do for the future is acquire this property and hire an engineering firm to determine what can we do right now and what can we do in the future. We're also planning to have the aquarium campus hopefully developed over time. And there is a left-hand turn lane, but it's not really utilized in order to get to the aquarium. Most people would take a right on 9th, then take a right on B Street to go underneath the Main Street Bridge. If we were to acquire the whole property, we would have the ability to potentially connect another turn lane that would connect to B that goes underneath the bridge that would bypass the intersection altogether at 9th and B. I talked with the school. I think that they were pretty concerned with having a coffee shop that would have an entrance to the coffee shop off of 9th that could potentially back up onto 9th, which would then back up the Main Street Bridge. And so I think that from what we heard when we had the PUD before the Planning Commission and Council, a lot of the concerns were related to traffic. And I think what we hear generally on virtually any planning item is related to traffic. And I think that anything we can do to plan for the future and get ahead of these issues is beneficial to us. And I think that based on the appraisal and based on what we've paid for property on less traveled roads and less traveled intersections, that this is a fair price.
Thank you, Mr. Strout. Mrs. Ogier, any more questions, comments?
Is there any way of, instead of buying the whole piece of property, can we just not buy that strip to make the right-hand turn?
So when we go through a road widening project plan, we may have, the engineers may say, you will need this much land. And depending on how much land we need and depending on how it affects a piece of property, the courts would say, even if we take a partial amount of a piece of property, it is so detrimental to the property that we may as well just take the whole thing because we've essentially ruined it. And so in this instance, Seven Brew backed out of this because you have the levee there, there's a drainage easement, there's power lines, and so I think that staff talked to them about putting in a right turn lane, and they just couldn't make it work based on the parking requirements, the drive-through, and they had a tiny, to my knowledge, a tiny actual building on the site. And so my concern going into that was, did I think it could work today? Yes. But I was concerned long-term about, we do need a right turn lane there at a minimum, and probably more. And so if we need a right turn lane and we allow this to potentially develop, there would be parking where the right turn lane would be going, and we'd be eliminating that. And if we eliminated that parking, could this Seven Brew concept even exist? I mean, it's debatable, but maybe not. So I guess maybe we could, but I think that the prudent thing to do would be to sit down with a traffic engineering firm and say, how could we improve the flow on the bridge utilizing this piece of property, getting cars down A Street and down B Street. Also, buses are a concern for the school. And so I think these are things that we've thought about and kind of debated internally, but ultimately we think having the whole property and being able to allow a traffic engineer the flexibility to do what they think is best, being able to utilize the whole property is the best long-term solution.
So we don't have a design or anything from like a.
No.
As to what we could use the property for?
No, but having the property that, basically, right now, if we were to go to a engineering firm and say, what could we do, we'd be constrained by, well, this is the land we own, this is what we would have to acquire, and if we don't acquire this, it's gonna be acquired by someone else more than likely, and something will be built, and it might be impossible to acquire
But
in the future.
hypothetically, we could get an engineer to design turn lanes based on the fact that we would own it all, hypothetically.
Oh, yeah, if we were to purchase this whole, my recommendation would be, we purchase this property, basically tell an engineer, here's the bridge, here's the intersection, which is super weird, as we all know, and say, how would you design this so that traffic can exit the bridge and we don't have the bridge backing up, utilizing this empty lot?
So with Seven Brew backing out, is there any other realistic possibilities, any other interest in it at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think the owner has had interest over time, and I think even has at least one letter of interest right now. And I guess that's my concern is it viable to develop without having, so if we were to require anyone to that develops this to have a right turn lane, could anything else develop? And if not, then are we essentially taking the property without taking the property by forcing them to have the right turn lane? I don't know what that. There's a term, it's like a.
Yes, we have an attorney on site.
Pause, unless you have an
I
answer.
think you're posing the question that could this potentially be some kind of regulatory taking?
There you
or
go, yeah,
state-
regulatory.
Eminent domain,
Yeah,
eminent domain.
and- Yeah, essentially eminent domain through regulation. So I'm not prepared, nor would this be the setting for me to put my opinion on that fact, but that's what Chris is proposing. And I think from a legal business standpoint, the thought is acquiring this at fair market value now in order to make whatever improvements are needed might be better than later on having to do it through eminent domain when prices can get jacked, especially if we allow someone
And
to
I hate
develop
to,
something.
I hate to even make the joke that the highest and best use of property is eminent domain.
Or you mean the best buyer is always the government?
Well, no, I mean,
Yeah.
we always end up, it's, because when a seller knows that we need to widen a road, a lot of people hold out and hold out and hold out and know that if they don't agree to a sale, it's going to be much more expensive for the city going through the eminent domain process, and we would, I mean, I don't even know if I should be.
Couldn't you also argue the point that this property has never been sold and nobody seems to be able to develop it in a way that's, it's not moving forward, so why would the value go up?
Well, it hasn't been for sale, but for the last couple of years.
Yeah. Do we have a copy of the appraisal that was, did the seller submit a copy of their appraisal? Do we have more than one?
No, we did this appraisal back in September of 2022.
Okay. Any more questions or comments, Mrs. Ojai? Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. Mr. Carr, when this came to Planning Commission, we asked for a traffic study as a requirement. And I think we had a limited traffic study. And when we did our traffic counts there, the instrumentation that we're using for those traffic counts, are they actually capturing the time of day of when the counts are coming through?
No, most of the counts that we're getting right now is from INCOG, and it's not time of day
So it's just total,
related.
it's wheel strikes basically then?
Well, it's based off of cell phone data,
Okay.
travel information.
And I guess the reason I ask that is, of course, part of the issue that we've done here is with the expansion of the school district within Ward 1, we've created this problem with traffic, and we really have two bottlenecks during the day. The morning traffic, when school is in session, we'll get stacking on the bridge. Again, and that's school traffic, because we've got so many students that drive and people being dropped off. And then at the end of the day, during rush hour, people, going west trying to get to South Jenks. And that stacking issue, I've not, sat there with a watch, but it seems to me traveling that, it's about a 40-minute window every day that it's happening. And you're right, the traffic that's coming through, typically, they're not emptying off to the north. They're going west through downtown. So a question that I would have would be compelling reason to make this investment now, because I do have some challenges, again, looking at some commercial real estate background, When Seven Brew came in and when this property was first listed, I personally had some challenges as to whether or not what they had it listed for was fair market value. And while we've got an appraiser that's come in and said this is a fair market value, if we look at the appraisal that was given to us, the property just to the north on the corner came in at a little over $16 per foot. So there's about a $2 per foot difference just within 80 feet of that. So I've got a question of the timing, compelling reason for the timing, and then also the price, whether or not that is a fair market value. And you actually stated this, because of the easements, the location, the drainage, while it is a very visible location from a retail standpoint, the lot size, the limited space for parking, the traffic that's there, the easements to deal with, I think the 750 and what came in is, I would challenge that.
Well, the property north of there wasn't commercial, it was office.
Right.
And so that's a huge difference in terms of, and it not being on Main Street, it being removed from Main Street.
Yeah, but again, location. While it's still, the two properties are very, very close in proximity and visibility is there. But again, with the easements, the drainage, the utilities that are coming through there, that site, when Seven Brew, proposed to come in, it was a stretch. I can't imagine anything else smaller or going in there. And I know when we addressed this issue, we were concerned about left turns coming out onto 9th Street. And we'd asked them to actually change their layout for their design to bring the traffic in and out, ingress and egress, on the north side of the lot. So again, I've got questions of whether or not this $750,000 is a lot of money to spend just for a right turn lane at this point in time. And I would agree, we definitely need the right turn lane there. I do think that if we have it, it will eliminate some of the stacking issues, but during those peak period of time, I'm not sure that it will completely eliminate them. And the other thought that I have is, because we've got all of the development that's happening with our street projects in the downtown area, plus what's going to be happening on Elm, until we get those projects completed, we really don't know what the accurate traffic flow will be when those are completed. And I'm just thinking right now, we're buying it at a premium.
Oh my gosh, this is only gonna go up in value. And I don't view land acquisition, land is an investment, just like buying a CD is an investment. And I think that if you look at land value in Jenks over the last 2 decades, you would rather have owned land than owned CDs. And that's the only thing that the city of Jenks can invest in, is collateralized investments. So, we juggle CDs up to $250,000 for millions and millions of dollars. And I think that long-term, would we rather have $750,000 sitting in CDs generating 2 years ago 1%, today 4%, or would we rather own Jenks land with the ability to expand the busiest intersection and the entrance to the entire city that handles the most cars of any street in the entire city? I think that we would want to own the land adjacent to that intersection, as opposed to having that money sit in the bank and having this land develop. And for reference, Dutch Brothers, Starbucks, when something like that, like 7 Brew that was proposed, goes in, they may buy the land for $750,000. They build a tiny building, have a drive-through, have minimal parking. Starbucks backs up onto what is maybe Dunkin', and people park on Dunkin', and it's a mess. And Starbucks, I think the last sale of Starbucks, it was like $2.5 million. Can you imagine? I can't even imagine going in 4 years, like if we say we don't want to buy this, and then the citizens of Jenks and the school district says this bridge is backing up constantly, for us to go in there and say, hey, 7 Brew or something similar, we want to buy a strip of your land. And they say, well, guess what? Instead of paying $18 a square foot, you're going to pay $60 a square foot for, to get the right-of-way you need, and then we have to pay for the relocation. I mean, I just think everything is only going to get more expensive, and I think that's why I'm recommending that we purchase this, to have the flexibility, and I think now is the time to purchase it, as opposed to this land. Some land at this intersection will be purchased, without a doubt. This intersection will have to be improved.
Yeah, and again, no arguments there. We never give up our right to eminent domain if it's needed. Again, the question is that fair market value price what's being proposed? Is that the true fair market value? Because I don't see other businesses lining up to buy that spot, because again, is it developable from a commercial standpoint? If 7 Brew, with the size of what they had proposed, can't make it work, other than what else is going to go in there other than somebody that wants to sit on it and hold it until we say we have to buy the property?
Mr. Brown, you got your salesman hat on tonight. You should be in commercial real estate. But
well, I mean, the thing is we've had the opportunity to buy this since it came on the market 2 years ago, and we've said no. And then when we sat here, and I personally recommended 7 Brew be approved, I think the comment was, well, I hope there's not a big issue with traffic on the bridge. And I left here and I thought, there's only going to be more traffic. And I just said that this is going to be okay. And I thought, I think I might have made a mistake. And so now I have an opportunity to make a recommendation to correct that. And if council thinks that, we are in year 9 of eminent domain litigation on the frontage road. We have spent millions of dollars on land that's valued at $3 a square foot. We have an opportunity to buy land at the busiest intersection in the city of Jenks for $18 a square foot. Dutch Brothers and Salad and Go, that land was $40 a square foot. The land where JDI Sprinkler is, that's like less than half an acre, was sold for $600,000. That's like $42 a square foot. I just think I don't even know where you can buy land on a major arterial in Jenks. If we're gonna go like buy strips of land, we're not gonna be paying $18 a square foot. Then we're gonna have to pay appraisers and attorneys, and I just kind of think, I do think it's worth $750. That's what, the appraiser that we've used on aquarium property, we've used on High Five. We've used them and used their values for years. But if the will of the council is to let this develop, I would just say, if we don't want to purchase it, because this is the other thing, if we don't want to purchase it, then when the next user comes in and says they want to do a drive-through coffee shop, we had the opportunity to buy it, and we didn't. So we should say, sure, put in the drive-through coffee shop, and then it'll be on, I guess, us collectively, if there's a problem with traffic on the bridge and the amount of money we have to pay to put in the right turn lane.
But in all fairness, though, we will apply we will ask for the same conditions of some future developer that we did of Seven Brew. We asked them to not let people turn left. Do you know, why did they walk? Why are they not here?
I think that when it came down to it, they found out that developing on that property was much more expensive than they originally thought it was
And
going
I
to be.
think anybody is going to find out that very same thing.
Because, you look at that, and it's a big hole there to where the drainage structure is. You gotta build that drainage structure up, you
Yeah.
gotta fill all that in, and I just think they finally got to a place where they just said,
Did
you
we
can't
ever
afford to do this.
Did we ever hear from Seven Brew when communications ended, or did we just know that? Did we ever get a?
It was also that
Is that a safe
the
assumption?
contract, they had a contract, they were waiting on Tulsa County or the Corps?
The Corps of
The Corps,
Engineers.
and so they were waiting on the Corps. Their contract kept expiring, they kept having to pay to extend it, and eventually they decided they didn't want to wait any longer.
Okay, so that's fair enough.
So again, I'm just throwing out ideas here because it's a traffic flow issue, and we've got 2 left turn lanes?
No.
Is there
One.
one?
On
One
the
going
Tulsa
westbound,
side,
yeah.
yeah.
No, I mean,
No, on our
going
side.
west.
Yeah,
We've got 2
one left turn.
So here's just a thought, again, versus $750,000, could we take the 2 left turn lanes down, make them 1, and just put a sign that says right turn lane only for those that are on the far right side?
We don't have 2 left turn lanes.
No, we've got one left turn lane,
okay.
You see the map.
Yeah.
2 through lanes,
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Mr.
one
Brown.
left turn lane.
Okay, so, but we could potentially say right turn lane only, so that anybody that gets in that lane is not gonna stack or back up traffic on the bridge.
No, it'll stack up more, because then everybody will be in the center lane
Yeah.
trying to go straight,
Okay.
instead of in both lanes.
Mr. Brown, can I ask you, you mentioned a piece of property north of this earlier. Were you talking about what we'll call the Mondo's lot?
Correct.
And that sold
you-
for
would you-
$700,000.
Yeah, but would you agree that the Mondo's lot versus this are, one's an apple and one's an orange, or?
They're different, I mean,
Yeah.
clearly, they are
One's
apples,
clearly
yeah.
workable and one's a little more.
Yeah,
Challenge.
clearly the property at the end of the bridge is gonna be much more difficult
So,
to develop.
so your point is that if I understand you correctly, is that you're trying to make on this property is that because of its history, it doesn't appear that its value would ever go up. Is that a safe assumption?
Again, I think comparatively, it's gonna be easier to develop that, the Mondo property versus the property that we're talking about right now. And the Mondo property was, on the appraisal that we were provided, was in the $16 per foot range.
And okay.
So
with
again,
much
I'm
less trouble.
challenging, based upon
But it was office.
based upon the comps, I'm challenging the
That's a big
findings that that the 750 was an accurate assessment. I think it's overvalued.
I think though, Chris, it's easy for us to look past the zoning and just to think about the location.
Yeah,
If you
but
think about the history-
zoning makes all the difference. I
I'm
mean,
just saying, if you had a
something that's
house that-
office
if you had a house
versus,
that's been for sale for 5 years and
versus
never under
versus
contract.
having a commercial piece of property?
Yeah, but
time.
That's so much
we
more
do have
valuable.
commercial property that's been approved to go in there, though.
Yeah,
A gym?
Yeah, well, yeah.
whatever it is.
I mean, we didn't allow a restaurant.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say we, but,
Well,
yeah, collectively, we didn't. Let's go ahead and pause, Mr. Brown. Mr. Emmons, did you have any comments on this? No. No, okay. Mr. Murray? Okay, Mr. Brown, anything else? Questions for Chris, Robert? Okay. All right, last call. All I will say is just simply from a real estate perspective, and I'm not a commercial realtor, but I don't, everybody's heard me say the value of the dirt in Jenks is going up and up and up, but this might be the one exception. So if there's nothing else, I would say we can entertain a motion on number 3. Entertain a motion to approve or not.
I'm going to make a motion to deny based on I think it's just overpriced at this point in time. That's my opinion.
Okay, we have a motion for denial of item 3. Is there a second?
Robert's rules, can we amend, offer an amendment?
We can get a second, and then we can debate the motion.
Okay.
Second. We have a proper motion and a second on the denial of the purchase of number 3. The motion is debatable. We can debate the motion. Mr. Brown?
Can we offer an amendment to come back with a different price?
I think that's pretty obvious that if the seller wants to do that, I would think the ball's in their court. But I don't think we need to leave that open-ended. Am I right in the protocol here? I meant debate on the motion in this. Did I do that right? Don't want to get us in trouble here.
I think so, yes.
You okay?
Yes, and I think what you're offering would be a denial of what's in front of us.
Yes or no?
Yeah, I don't think we need to focus.
If it doesn't get a motion, it doesn't get a motion.
Yeah, if you're insinuating that we negotiate this, I don't think we need to do that tonight. I think that would be obvious. Do that. Any more debate on the motion on the table to deny the purchase of said real estate, item number 3? Last call. All right, so we have a proper motion and a second on item 3. Let's, I guess to be clear, the yes is and you are in favor of the purchase, and no, you are not in favor.
No, it's the other way around.
It's yes to the denial.
You're correct. The motion was to deny the purchase, so it is the opposite. I think if you would have made the motion to just approve item 3, we could have kept it in the right order. That's the way my brain works. You flipped it on me. All right, you guys get it. We have a proper motion and a second on item 3. Let's vote, please.
Murray,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Emmons,
Yes.
Ogier,
Yes.
Chairbox.
Yes. Item 3 fails, so we can disregard item number 4. Right, Chris? Does item 4 is not needed? Okay, so 4 to 5. All right, moving on to other business. Anything else, Mr. Shrout, General Manager's report?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you for your patience, Mrs. Turner. We are moving on to our monthly chamber report.
All right. I think you all have reports in front of you. And so, as usual, I will go over the items, but I won't mention every single item, but you can look for upcoming events. January 11th, morning mingle at Jenks Restaurant here on Main Street. January 17th, the State of Schools special luncheon, and that's with Dr. Butterfield as our featured guest. We have patisserie ribbon cutting happening on January 28th with Sheila Dills, and Lieutenant Governor will be present for that special.
Is it the 28th or the 23rd?
It's the 23rd.
Oh, okay, you said the 28th.
No, sorry, the 23rd, the 23rd. And then January 25th is our Emerge Young Professionals Happy Hour at Cape Brewing. And then January 30th is Network Jenks at our ranch offices. On January 18th, like Chris mentioned earlier, we have our annual banquet and award ceremony for Best of Jenks. I hope that you'll all be there in attendance to celebrate the best of Jenks in retailers, new businesses, small businesses, larger businesses, and volunteers of the year, and so forth. You can register at jinkschamber.com, and of course, it's hosted at River Spirit. Okay, and then if you go on to economic development, we had a lot of activity here, so you'll see in your packet a lot of different meetings on development happened, a lot of incentive application reviews Marseille and I worked on over the last 30 days. Those are moving forward, and it's very exciting. I had a meeting today about the new consumer financial protections that are being initiated in 2024 for small businesses. So in the past, small businesses applying for small business loans did not have to put in their demographic information. Now they do. And so there's some fair lending practices going in. That is debatable about, some people think it's going to be a good thing. Some people think it's going to put up hurdles. So that's something that we're looking at for our small businesses. And of course, Simon Mall announced 6 brands that are coming to Jenks. And so we had some fun talking with them. Of course, if you haven't seen that article yet, we have Polo, Vera Bradley, Columbia, Nike, Tory Burch, and Los Cabos Little Kitchen all announced. Coming to Simon Mall. Community collaboration, if you go into that section, Jenks High School Alternative School. We worked with them to prepare food packages with the Jenks Optimist Club. So a lot of those went out. Of course, if you attended Lights On, you know that 50 vendors, in addition to all of our Main Street merchants, the most participation that I hadn't know of, and I've participated for the last 11 years. So it's really exciting to see the Main Street merchants all participate this year. If you notice, the setup was different. That was intentional so that all of the vendors were set up in the middle of the street so that there was walkability on the sidewalks. So all of the merchants, none of the merchants were covered up by vendors. And they all appreciated that. Christmas in the Commons. Well, the first week with the movie worked. Last week, we got rained out. So Santa is going over well, but the movie did get rained out last Friday night, so there you have it. If you turn over, you can see we hosted our first Main Street merchant meeting. We had 10 businesses show up to participate and collaborate on cross-marketing opportunities. Out of that came our Shop Jenks 12 Days of Christmas. And so we have a bingo card. 16 businesses participated, and so they all have bingo cards that are set up. They all have, we have QR code that shows what specials they are providing, and then the chamber, mayor, and our Oklahoma Aquarium have collaborated to work together, and so we have a family fun pack that will be given away. We'll go to all of the locations on Friday, pick up all of the people who purchased. If they made a purchase at any of those businesses, they get an entry to win. And so this is just one cross-marketing campaign that we're doing, so that's kind of a fun one. Muskogee Nation, I've been working with their tourism director because they're putting some Native American heritage artwork throughout Jenks, so if you probably noticed some of that on River Spirit, on the Riverwalk. However, we're also working with some local businesses and with Simon for possible other murals throughout the city of Jenks, which are also tourism attractions. And of course, Muskogee Nation is really interested in that, and they're very excited about that collaboration. Government affairs, our Jenks Day at the Capitol, if you want to mark your calendars, is scheduled for April 8th. We would love you all to attend. We had 30 attend last year. It was a really great time. This year it's on a Monday, and that's intentional because the very next day is a Leadership Jenks, bless you, is a Leadership Jenks that we want to make sure we're here in town for. Leadership Jenks in January will be all about the city of Jenks, and so we're excited for to hear from Chris and Marseille. I think you all are on the agenda to share, and of course our mayor, so we're very excited. That's coming up. And then the board of directors did vote to support our Jenks school bond, which is going to vote on February 13th. And so we'll do a Show Some Love for Your School District campaign coming up for that. On to marketing and tourism, we hired a videographer to create Follow a Family Through Jenks. It's a tourism video, and we have a family that goes to all different kinds of things throughout Jenks. We follow them. And so that'll be a tourism video that will launch at our banquet. So you'll see it first time there. And then we will be sharing that regionally to attract like families and show them that you can have a lot of fun right here in Jenks, even before Simon Mall is here. And then, of course, after that, we'll continue updating. And so that's a really exciting one. We coordinated with 10 different businesses. It was a big deal. So I'm looking forward to seeing that final project. We're working on our community calendar. This is our second year to do that. But this year, we're trying to go with a trifold option, now that we have a little bit of a marketing budget, wink, wink. And that way, we can have that for our hotels in school districts, in businesses, to be able to show these are all of the events that are coming up. These are the things that you can participate in, not only with the chamber, but with all of the other entities who offer open to the public events. Like I said, the Jenks 12 Days of Christmas is on there. And I think those are kind of the highlights that I wanted to share from this report. Council, you can see we have the quarterly financial update from the marketing and tourism. It's right here. I included a pie chart so you can see how those dollars are being spent. And it's really an important part of what we do, because we can have great programs, we can have great people, we can provide great services, but if we can't promote to tell people about it, then we can't actually be a resource to the people that we're meant to serve. So thank you for that. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mrs.
And
Turner.
I do have something for Charlotte, because I did get a request. Now, I didn't get the request, but you know what, Charlotte, just because I'm a sweetheart, I not only gave you this month, I gave you last report too. You got everything, girl. So I'll make those extra copies for you.
Ms. Heather, where can residents find the community calendar, and the calendar represents chamber, school, and city, is that correct?
Chamber, school, city, aquarium, Jenks Public Schools Foundation,
Oh, wow.
the garden club, anybody who does open to the public major events and festivals.
Future
So,
veterans.
if the veterans yeah, so if you are an entity who is providing in Jenks and you're providing, then you can submit your things. We'll have the trifold probably won't, we're collaborating right now. I think we have all of the aquariums events turned in. We have the Jenks Public Schools major events. The foundations, they're waiting on the football schedule. So we coordinate. And the reason we do that, it's very important, is because we don't want to compete for the same vendors and the same traffic and the same target audience on the same day and time. Instead, we'd rather have lights on Thursday, and then the Riverwalk hosts something on Friday, and then the Jenks Christmas Parade on Saturday, and then 12 Days of Christmas on Main Street. And then that way you've got people constantly having traffic, and you're also not competing for the same food truck vendors and the same clothing vendors and jewelry vendors and all of these things. Instead, we work together, and we have less friction. Instead, we have collaboration.
That's good.
And so sometimes there are going to be some things happening at the same time, but that's the goal, is to have lots of activity and then to promote not only our chamber events, but as a chamber, we want everybody who's in business to succeed. That's the whole point. And so that's why we're using some of our marketing and tourism funds to promote those events. So,
And where can people find this calendar when it's completed?
JenksChamber.com.
Okay.
And then also, of course, we'll publish it on Facebook and everything like that once the new one's out. But then we'll have the actual material, like physical copies that we'll have available for any businesses. We'll, of course, provide them for the city and the schools. Everybody who's participating will get them,
Okay.
as well as our hotels.
Thank you. And for April 8th for our Capitol visit, are we confirmed with Governor Stitt, or who are we meeting?
We are confirmed with this, you first confirm with the Capitol, and you
Okay.
have our room, and you have your for initial agenda. You don't get to confirm with the governor until it's really close because of his schedule. So
Okay.
they tell you can try to confirm with lieutenant governor or governor 6 to 8 weeks out at the max.
Do we have a confirmed speaker opposed? Not either one of those, but typically we have a senator or somebody that comes in.
Yeah, And, well, we have, of course, our local legislators, and then we have some of the ones that we had last year that couldn't come, like Raider is
Yeah.
one of ours, that we're trying to get those
Bless you.
elected officials confirmed, but they're not all confirmed yet. But we do have our main schedule, like our tours. I think we start out with our tour, then we have time in session, and then we have time with different, on the floor, because like Lonnie, committee meetings. So like different committee meetings that we can actually go to with our different representatives.
So for you two, it's a really good experience. I would do what you can. But Monday, April 8th, the PTO.
Do we need to
whatever you-
confirm if it's going to be a large delegation, should we confirm with you if we're going to go?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll reach out to Sarah Tacknell for anyone at the city that wants to go, so you'll need to confirm with her. And then we also have waivers that you'll sign if you want to do the dome tour.
Any other questions for Mrs. Turner?
All right.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your wonderful customer service to the lady in the back. All right. Last call for council. Comments, questions before we close? All right, very well. The time is 8:50. We are adjourned. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.